Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I believe it's about time for another Hitbox video, and it's actually a bit of a special video today, as we're actually taking a look at one of my mains, that being the Belmonts, or more specifically Richter. In having played the character for so long, I have plenty of first-hand experience using these hitboxes, and I can tell you for a fact that a lot of them are unique. So let us set out into the dusk and see what awaits us, a beautiful moonlight, or another horrible night. Today's hitboxes were created by Zeckemyro. There are links in the description. As usual, if there's a character you want me to cover in a future video, let me know in the comments and I'll consider it for next time. But, enough talk. How about you? First up tonight, we have Jab. It's effectively 4 hitboxes of quite normal Smash Ultimate size. Not really shocking anyone. It leads into the second part, which have some slightly bigger but pretty similar hitboxes, and after that there's always a rapid jab into a launcher hit. It's an okay jab all things considered, but like most other jabs in Ultimate, not super great. The one rather unique aspect about it, however, is the fact that it has a bit of a separate function, that being the dangle chain. By holding down jab and a few other moves, you can activate the dangle chain, which you then can swing around freely. The hitbox looks like this. There are 4 of them, with the 3 closest just kinda stunning and the tipper launching away. This here is a visual from the training mod made by Yugiha, so we can actually see the move in action. The hitbox is only active while the chain is moving, but if you keep rotating it, there will always be a hitbox the entire time. It's not strong or fast, and there's no combo potential into it or out of it at all. I guess this is just meant to be a fun throwback to the games where this was a thing, and maybe to Melee as well, with Sheik having a pretty similar thing going on. Because in terms of utility, it's pretty much non-existent. And if anything, it's actually pretty detrimental to the normal jab, essentially making it so that you always have to mash to get the full combo, meaning you have to commit to the entire combo even if you miss, since the holding down function is reserved by the dangle chain, whereas most other characters can just hold it down and it happens automatically, and if they miss, the move just cancels on its own. It's not a huge deal since jab is not very good to begin with, but I can't say I love sacrificing functionality for a pretty much unusable side move. Oh, and also, I have to mention that there is no actual hitbox difference between Richter and Simon. They are pretty much completely identical, the only real difference being that their holy waters use different elements for their fire. But that is the actual only significant difference. All of their hitboxes and attributes are completely identical. Anyways, moving on to F-Tilt. F-Tilt is a pretty great move by all accounts. It's essential to the character and is really one of the great zoning tools he has. It's not super fast, but has a lot of horizontal range and relatively little lag afterwards. The move consists of 3 hitboxes, and it is our first introduction to a quirk regarding a lot of Belmont's moves, that being the unusual power difference between most of his whip moves. Most of the moves that use the whip have 1 sweet spot, 1 sour spot, and 1 super sour spot. The ball being the sweet spot dealing 12, the chain dealing 10, and the grey one on Richter only deals 2%, which I think justifies the name super sour spot. We're going to be seeing this a lot on other moves, so it's good to keep this in mind. There is, however, a pretty unfortunate downside to this hitbox, that being that it is pretty slim on the vertical side, meaning it is very prone to low profiling, even by characters that don't usually do that very often. It's especially bad in this case since it's such a vital tool to Belmont's neutral, and you kinda can't afford to just randomly miss moves like these. I'd be perfectly fine if there was just a super sour spot under it, just so that you don't lose neutral to characters just slightly crouching under a move on accident. This is obviously not a problem exclusive to Belmont, but I do like pointing these out when I am aware of them. And in this case, it is particularly annoying when it happens. Down tilt is another move that is really good most of the time. The first hit is a slide along the ground that has 2 hitboxes. The hit is active for quite a while and covers a nice amount of ground. It launches the opponent back to set up into the second hit. The second hit simply launches the opponent away. The move works fine most of the time, but because the second hit is so tall, and Richter moves a bit before it comes out, it leaves a pretty huge blind spot, which can make the move miss smaller characters and a lot of fast fallers. And when using just the second hit, you can outright just pass through other characters. It would be great if there was some hitboxes closer to Richter to make sure it does not happen, but oh well. Beyond that, the hitbox is actually surprisingly generous, having hitboxes almost all the way until Richter lands, which certainly can catch some people off guard. So overall, I think it's a pretty great move, even if it's a little inconsistent at times. Richter's up tilt is a bit of an odd move. Richter whirls his whip into the air above him, and the move lasts for quite a while. It's basically a grounded version of Byleth's up air, or rather, Byleth's up air is an aerial version of Richter's up tilt. Either way, it has 4 hitboxes. The 3 on the whip are the same, dealing 10%, while the orange one is a sour spot, only dealing 2% and having significantly less knockback. The move is okay. It's very clearly supposed to be a dedicated anti-air move, but it is just a little too slow and laggy to be reliable, and it doesn't really combo into anything, so you don't really get anything out of it. but it will likely beat out almost any aerial coming its way because of its sheer size. With being a dedicated zoner character, it may come as no surprise that Belmont's dash attack is not super great. It has 4 hitboxes which try to launch you forward, while Belmonts flail their whip around. The 2 hitboxes in the front simply launches forward, while the 2 in the back have auto-link angles. The move is fine, it serves its purpose I guess. It's okay for catching landings and providing hitboxes while moving, but it's quite laggy and deals little damage. Belmont's grabs are exceptionally bad. Not only are they among the slowest non-tether grabs in the game, coming out earliest on frame 10, but they also have abysmal range. Like, I get that they wanted these characters to be zoners, and I guess zoners just don't even get to have, like, mediocre grabs. But I mean, at the same time, you have characters like Samus, whose grab is, like, not even that bad in this game, only being 5 frames slower than Richter's and having, like, 10 times the range. I don't know, it's a little silly, but so be it. Neutral air has 8 hitboxes. No, I'm not joking. Though all of them are totally overlaid. Half of them are meant for grounded opponents, while the other ones are meant for aerial. They just kind of flicker in and out of existence while trying to keep the opponent inside the move until the launch comes out, which is just a single hitbox. It's honestly a very consistent neutral air. Like, I can't actually recall a time this move has just dropped for me. It may have something to do with the fact that the Belmonts have horrid airspeed, so it's not like they're moving around too much even if they wanted to. But I guess that does make the move work well either way. Moving on to forward air, where we have a fair bit to talk about. This move is quite similar to a lot of other whip moves having 3 hitboxes. From right to left having a tipper, a sour spot, and a super sour spot. The move can be angled in 3 directions, up, down, and just forward. The move is very good, having some of the highest range out of any aerials in the game. Though the only problem I have with it is how slim the hitbox is. You have to be very precise when using this move. Just angling the whip slightly wrong can cost you neutral. And in the long run you're likely to miss despite your best efforts. But in all fairness, the move is great. Now, if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed that some of these hitboxes have a grey hitbox in front of Belmont before the active frames. This is one of the unique properties of Belmont's whip. This hitbox is not actually a hitbox, but a detector that checks if an aerial is going to hit a wall. If this is the case, the entire move besides the 2% hitbox is cancelled, and the chain just bounces off the wall. This is present on all the moves with a grey visual, and is also the case with F-tilt we looked at earlier. While this is mainly not a problem since there are no legal stages with actual walls, besides the sides of some stages. This can still happen, but it's very easy to work around, so ultimately it's not a big deal. I guess they made this so that you can't just cheese people through walls when playing casually, which I guess is fair enough. I mean, it doesn't stop characters like Shulk from doing practically the same thing, but I digress. This move also doubles as a recovery option. When used close to the ledge, Belmonts will tether to the ledge if you are close enough. The tether range varies depending on the angle of the whip, which I'll display right here. It's a very nice extra thing to have since Belmonts have such awful airspeed and air acceleration, making recovering from a short distance off stage much safer, though from long distances it doesn't really make things much easier since the range of the tether is relatively low. Back air is pretty much just a mirror of forward air, though it is slightly stronger in terms of knockback, but as far as hitboxes go they are very similar. Much like forward air, you can also angle back air. It can also tether to the ledge, though the range seems to be pretty much identical to forward air, just mirrored. Having 2 moves on both sides like this gives you a lot of range to play with, but like I said with forward air you have to be very precise when using these aerials since they are very slim. Up air is kinda like his other aerials, having almost all the same qualities. It can tether and it has 3 hitboxes of decreasing strength. The tether range looks like this. It has about the same vertical range as up B, making it a bit redundant all things considered, as having the hitbox with up B is better in pretty much every scenario. Aside from that, you cannot angle this one, it simply goes straight up. Since it's fairly slow and Belmonts have such slow movement, I find it hard to get a lot of usage out of this one. Unless you are in just the right spot, it's generally not worth trying to catch people in the air with it. Though if you do find a good opportunity, you can dish out some serious damage or get some really early kills with it. Oh boy, let's talk about Richter's down air. This move is just bad, and the hitbox is actually largely to blame. Belmonts perform a dive kick downwards in the air. On the first 2 frames it actually spikes, which would be good were it not for the fact that if you use this move off stage, you just instantly die. After this, it just has a single hitbox around its legs while it travels downwards. And you see, this is where a large problem with this move comes in. The hitbox does not cover the hurtbox while descending. If you look here, there's actually a bit of his hurtbox that sticks out below the hitbox, leaving you very exposed and effectively giving it a negative disjoint. This means you can simply just lose to other moves because the hurtbox is extended too far, or at best you will trade. It's a surprisingly big problem, and I do believe this is largely an oversight. If you do land the descending part of the move, however, it does actually bounce the opponent up, and you can follow their trajectory. You can sometimes get an up B follow-up, but it is risky since it's DI dependent. And if you DI the actual up B correctly, it doesn't even kill at any realistic percent anyways, so eh. It's kinda lame that the move is like this, since some other dive kicks on characters like ZSS have way bigger hitboxes and does not have this problem at all. And ZSS down here also has like half the amount of lag that this one has. I don't really know why they made this move so bad, but oh well. Speaking of up B, that is what is up next. It starts out with a single hitbox that hits the opponent up and tries to set up for the second part of the move, which consists of a large cylinder hitbox that traces after Belmonts as they ascend into the air. The hitbox tries to keep you inside the move until the launch comes out, which is just a single hit replacing the multi-hits. The move is not super great as a recovery tool, being kinda bad in terms of distance, but I guess being a zoner just means you have to have a bad recovery, and a bad grab, and bad airspeed, and bad ground speed, and slow moves. But the move is actually pretty good as an out-of-shield option, being quite fast and dealing a fair amount of damage. But like most out-of-shield options, if you miss, there will be a hefty punish waiting for you. Side B is the cross, and there is not too much to say here. It's one of those hitboxes that just fit the graphic one-to-one. Like, just look at it, it's beautiful, simple, rustic. The move does rotate, which is not shown in the visual, but I do think your brain can figure out this one on its own. It's one of Belmont's essential zoning tools, being by far the best projectile. You can do a lot of fun things with it, and it allows for some really nice combos if you're feeling daring, though most of the time you're just going to use it to pester people in neutral, which works fine. So this is the part of the video that I was going to tell you that holy water is an item projectile and therefore cannot be visualized. But as it turns out, fate would have things otherwise. As while I was about to wrap this video up, we actually got access to all the data we need to visualize items, which is pretty huge in and of itself, but that does actually mean that we can have a look at the holy water visual, and all future items should that be desirable. Holy water, as I just made clear, is an item projectile. When you throw it, it flies towards the ground, and when it hits, it turns into fires that damages and stuns the enemy. In being an item projectile, it can be caught and thrown back, which is pretty bad and I can't say I like it much. A lot of the time you'll have people accidentally catch the holy water while throwing out a move in the air, or they can just simply air dodge and grab it 100% of the time after getting hit by it. It's pretty dumb, but so be it. The bottle itself has a hitbox while traveling, which looks like this. It's just what you would expect, there's not too much to say about it. The fire is a bit of a different story, however. On the first frame where the bottle bursts, the hitbox covers the ground quite far, but not too much up into the air. The hitbox launches you slightly towards the center of the fire. After the first frame, it is replaced with a circle hitbox that stuns briefly before being replaced by the two other hitboxes that stay there for the rest of the move. These hitboxes, however, slightly decrease in size as the move lingers. The move is a bit of a mixed bag. A large majority of the active frames have an increased SDI multiplier, making them easier to escape than other moves, as well as the lingering hitboxes being quite far away from the hits before them, meaning you may just not get hit into them or end up very far on the edge and fall out easily. It is also a bit janky since the autolink angle on the frame before does not always work as intended, and sometimes can help the opponent get farther away from the fire depending on their DI. Aside from the multi-hits being kind of inconsistent at times, the move is not super practical in most situations, outside of ledge japping, where it admittedly is pretty great, and can lead to some really strong punishes. It can be good in neutral, but it's way harder to get good punishes as well as just hitting the holy water in a good spot, where they just don't instantly fall out. It's a pretty decent move overall. It has its ups and downs, but so does every move I suppose. Though I have to say I'm pretty happy about finally getting to look at this visual, even if it did make me have to rewrite the entire section of this video. Neutral B is the axe, which is certainly an interesting move. It's frame 30, which is just a great start. The hitbox is disappointing to say the least, being notably smaller than the actual visual, just being a single hitbox in the middle. The axe travels at an arc from where it's thrown, and you can slightly influence the distance by holding back or forward. The axe goes through walls and floors, which is pretty cool, but given its startup and lag is kind of to be expected. Outside of situations where you are already in advantage or have total stage control, this move is not very useful. For ledge trapping, the move is pretty okay for covering ledge jump, as far as frame 30 moves go at least. You can do some fun stuff with it, but the move is far from flexible. Can I also just mention real quick how sad I think it is that Belmonts have like 3 moves dedicated entirely to ledge trapping, and despite this, their ledge trapping game is still not as good as Snake's. Like, am I the only one who thinks that's a little dumb? Last up for the night is smash attacks. Up smash is basically just up air but on the ground and stronger. It does, however, only have the sour spot and the sweet spot. The move is really slow, and being restricted to the ground, the move is extremely hard to land, especially if you want the sweet spot. It's just a bad move, there's really not too much more to say than that. It's really nice if you hit it, but most of the time there are just better options. This move also has the wall detection thing, so no sharking for you. F Smash has 5 hitboxes and does follow the whip hitbox formula from earlier, although the super sour spot in this case still really hurts because the move is so powerful. The 2 hitboxes the farthest away are the sweet spot, the 2 in the middle are the sour spots, and the one the closest are the weakest. The move also has the wall detection thing just to make sure nobody has fun clipping through walls. The move is alright, but only really useful after hitting a holy water as a punish. You can use it in neutral, but it's so slow and it's laggy, so that's a huge risk. Though as a punish tool it does hit like a truck. Last up is down smash. The move is pretty simple, just being a hit in front and a hit behind, like most down smashes. This one has 3 different damages between the hits, with the strongest being the tipper and it being progressively weaker the closer it gets. The hitboxes are actually pretty good, and if you discount the startup and lag, would have actually been a pretty good tool, but since it is so slow it's mostly outclassed by other safer options. It is sadly his strongest up-close punish tool if you can't get in position for an F-smash. And often you don't even get the tippers, so it's fine. But anyways, that was all of Belmont's hitboxes. I'm sorry if this video was a bit more complainy than usual, but since I have had so much experience using these hitboxes and have had them not work the way they're supposed to, I kinda just wanted to make note of it here. There's always a bit more to say when you have a lot of personal experience with something like this. But that does it for now. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and I'll see you next time.
Nice of Dracula to invite us over for a picnic. Hey, Richter.